When preparing a critical edition of a text with authorial corrections, one of the most important decisions is choosing which version to place at the top of the page as the base text. Should it be the final version left by the author, which most likely reflects their last intentions, or an earlier draft that shows the text still in progress? This choice affects not only what appears in the main body of the edition, but also what appears below the text in the apparatus. The apparatus is where the critical editor records what couldn't make it into the base text: deletions, corrections, additions, and alternative readings. It is where the process of writing and the transmission of text become visible. Depending on which version is chosen as the base text, the apparatus will take on a different character. It will either be genetic or evolutionary. A genetic apparatus is used when the editor chooses the final version of the text as the base text. In this case, the apparatus looks back and tries to reconstruct the earlier stages of composition. The term genetic refers to genesis, the origin of text. These apparatus aim at representing how the text transformed during the drafting process or the subsequent stages. It may rely on manuscripts, typescripts, or printed edition corrected by hand, any document containing author's interventions. The goal is not simply to reproduce these documents photographically, but to interpret them and show how the text developed over time, tracing its path from the first draft to the final form. It doesn't simply list variants, but suggests a chronology and the logic behind the author revisions. It is like a map of the writing process constructed by the editor to guide the reader to the genesis of the work. An evolutionary apparatus, on the other hand, is used when the editor selects the first version of the text as the base text. In this case, the apparatus looks forward, recording the changes that occurred after the initial version was produced. It shows what the author added, removed, or rewrote in subsequent versions. Like the genetic apparatus, it is not a literal reproduction of documents, but an interpretation. It traces the text development from its starting point toward the later forms, highlighting how the work transformed and expanded after its first emergence. Both types of apparatus aim at documenting the writing process, but they do so from different perspectives. A genetic apparatus begins with the final version of the text and looks backward, reconstructing the earlier stages of composition. An evolutionary apparatus, by contrast, starts with the first version and looks forward, tracing the changes made in later revisions. The fundamental difference between them lies in this direction of focus. The choice between the two depends entirely on which version is selected as the base text. If we choose the final version, the apparatus will be genetic. If we choose the first version, it will be evolutionary. This distinction is especially clear in the digital edition on The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin, available on the Darwin Online website. In this edition, the reader can choose any of the 6 British editions published between 1859 and 1872 as base text. Depending on which edition is selected, the apparatus functions differently. If we choose the 1872 edition, the last one, as our basis, the apparatus shows how the same passages appeared in previous editions, what Darwin changed, removed, or added along the way. This is a genetic apparatus because it reconstructs the path that led to the final form. If we choose instead the 1859 edition, the first one, the apparatus shows what Darwin modified in later editions, how his thinking evolved, what he revised, and how the text expanded. This is an evolutionary apparatus, because it starts with the earliest version and follows the changes that came afterward. A well-known example comes from chapter 14, where Darwin first wrote that life was originally breathed into a few forms. In the 1860 edition, he added the phrase by the creator, changing the sentence to originally breathed by the creator into a few forms. These, of course, represent a significant change in the overall structure of e-reasoning. If we choose the 1872 edition as the base text, the apparatus indicates that this phrase was not present in 1859. If we choose the 1859 edition instead, the apparatus shows that by the creator was added later and retained in subsequent editions. In both cases, and mentioned earlier, the structure of the apparatus remains the same, but its direction and purpose depend entirely on the editorial decision regarding the base text.